You're good to go, friend.
All right. Good morning, friends from all over the world connecting here today with us with the Bezerra Spiritual Healing Center online. We are so excited to start another beautiful service today. But before we start, I would like to invite our dear friend and brother, Brian, who will do a beautiful opening prayer to set the tone of our meeting today. Brian, please.
Thank you. Dear God, we humbly come to you as your children that you want us to be, wishing to educate ourselves more, to learn better how to serve our neighbor and love our neighbor. We welcome all the spirits, brothers and sisters, mentors, angels, all who wish to participate and learn with us. Thank you to the mentors who have helped Joao prepare for this presentation, and thank you for being present to assist with him to present the material today. Thank you for this opportunity. May it humble us. May it help us grow. May it help us elevate ourselves to further understanding of what we are and what our place is in this world. We love and trust you, God. You know what's best for us, and we welcome to receive what we need. Let's begin today's presentation and healing to follow. So be it.
So be it. Thank you, Brian, for a beautiful prayer, for inviting us to be present in body and spirit to receive the message that our special guest, João or John, will be sharing with us. But before, let me share some reminders, some announcements that we have here at Bezerra Spiritual Healing Center. So remember, we respect all religions and spiritual traditions. We have studied the books of Allan Kardec, the Spiritism, and we invite all of our friends from all kinds of background to join us, to open yourself up to receive beautiful messages and incorporate in your daily life. We are also member of the United States Spiritist Center and Federation, which the beliefs are around scientific, philosophical, and religious principles of Spiritism. And Emmanuel, let me remind some of you that have studied the doctrine and the books of Emmanuel that says, knowledge and love are the two wings of our spiritual evolution. So knowledge and love. And I know we all have so much love to give and be open to receive love. And the knowledge, such a beautiful and important part of our center, because it's about the education. Yeah? And to that end, we do offer several opportunities for everybody to come and educate yourself. It's that inner transformation invitation through education. With that said, let me show and share my screen where you can see the opportunities for learning. What you're looking at is in our screen is our daily opportunities for learning, the education piece that BSH, Bezerra Spiritual Healing Center, offers. So on Monday, we do have an internal healing services that some of our friends here are united to pray to do their healing service. And on Tuesday, we have the Light Ahead at Divine Light at 6:30 p.m. PST Pacific Time. Wednesday at 4 p.m., from 4 to 7 p.m. Pacific, we have fraternal counseling, where several members of our center will be here to assist you with whatever issue you're going through, and you need a friend. You need a friendly shoulder to assist you throughout the tribulations and trials in your daily life. And then we have the inner transformation that started last month in in July. It's called the inner transformation from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. And then on Thursday, from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, psychology of gratitude. Another invitation, another opportunity for you to join us and educate yourself. And then on Sundays at 10 today, 10 in the morning, 11 to 11:30 a.m. here Pacific time, we're going to have the speech portion, which is part 1 with our special guest, João or John. And then we're going to have the healing passes as a second portion of our meeting. And then at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, Workers of the Life Eternal, there is the book study with the group at Divine Light. And then if you are unable at this moment to commit to these studies, we also have the daily prayer at 6 p.m. Pacific time every day. If you have a moment to dedicate to this beautiful prayer where we all come together to say, prayer and wishes for a better world and for the healing of our planet and for our own healing as workers of light, you are invited to come and join us. The more, the merrier, and we are all connected spiritually to do a beautiful work together. So there are a lot of options. Of course, you can always check the links, the times on our website, which is bshcenter.org. So join us in this beautiful movement, educate ourselves and our souls for a better world, for a better self. All right. And then today we have a very special guest. I'm very excited because our guest is going to speak about something very important in the mediumship realm. And his name is Joao Korngold, or John. And he is one of the founders and the directors of the Spiritist Group of New York and the Spiritist Alliance for Books. John began studying Spiritism more than 25 years ago and has been one of the directors of the Mediumship meeting at the Spiritist Group of New York for the past 20 years. John is definitely a man on a mission. He is also responsible for study groups that focus on the basic books of the Spiritism and on the André Luiz collection. He gives talks on Spiritism in Portuguese and in English, and João is an engineer and works as a banker. So he's here today with us online directly from New York. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here with us today. And we are so excited to hear what you have to teach us today, John. So without further ado, I welcome you and my friends to welcome you to our beautiful center. Yay. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a great honor to be here with you, sharing a little bit of the studies of Spiritism. This is a study more than a lecture, because I think it's important for us to share this knowledge, to understand better the basic concepts of Spiritism and go a little deeper into understanding the differences of what happens to mediums in the mediumship meeting and the different aspects of mediumship. So let me share my screen. You can see here anemism in the mediumship practice. Well, before we start, again, feel free to ask questions, to interrupt me. We are here to study together. We need first to define what is anemism. Because if you go to the dictionary and look for the word anemism, you are not going to find what the definition of anemism as as is taught by Spiritism. So one thing that we always discuss in our studies is the importance of defining the words that we use in Spiritism. For instance, in Spiritism, we call an incarnate spirit a soul, and a discarnate spirit an errant spirit. But if you go outside Spiritism, you are going to find many different definitions of a soul. In Spiritism is an incarnate spirit, and that's the concepts that are important. So anemism in Spiritism, as used by Spiritism, is an out-of-body experience of a medium, or a communication of a medium that is not from an external source, but it is from its own experience or its own baggage. So if a medium is talking about a past life of it, or is bringing the experiences that they have, that's what we call anemism in Spiritism, okay? The word anemism you won't find in Kardec. You can look for in all the basic books of the codification. You can look in the Spirit's book. You can even look in the Spiritist Review, which are slowly being published in English. So we already have 5 years of the Spiritist Review in English. And you won't find the word anemism. According to Spiritism, the first one that brought the word animism was Alexander Akhtakov, the Russian scientist that published a book called Anemism and Spiritism. The word animism comes from anima, soul, so your own person. So that's why it's important for us to define here. Then Ernesto Bosano, an Italian researcher, published a book called Anemism Proves Spiritism. So what is animism? Let us give some examples. Telepathy. André Luiz in the book, In the Domain of Mediumship, he talks about we really evolve in deep telepathic communion with all incarnates and discarnates who are in tune with us. So telepathy, the communication through thought, is an example of animism because you are not being an intermediary. Clairvoyance, clairaudience, that Tanya mentioned a little bit. These are two examples. What is clairvoyance? Is to see and clairaudience, to hear without using physical eyes or physical ears. So the spirit goes into the spiritual world, sees or hears, and reports what is seeing or hearing. Again, it's the medium itself, the spirit itself, not a medium, that is doing it. So it is animism. When you have the ability to move objects, that's the ability of a medium with a physical phenomena. It could be an animism. It could be mediumship. Bicorporeality, which is an example that we have this famous spiritist in Brazil from the beginning of the 20th century called Eurípides Barçanufo, who used to deliver babies miles away while when he was in his own home. There is a famous case of a lady that started to have the baby, and the husband took the horse and ran towards Eurípides Barçanufo house. When he arrived there, Eurípides told him, "Oh, don't worry, I already went there and delivered the baby." And he was very surprised, went back, and the wife said, yes, Eurípides was here, and it was a bicorporeality. The famous case of San Anthony of Padua, right, that went to from Padua to Portugal, where his father was being tried, was on a trial, and he presented the deposition to defend his father without ever leaving Padua. That's another example of bicorporeality, which is, again, anemism. It's not mediumship. Precognition or retrocognition, the ability to see things in the past and come and talk about it, or to see things that are going to happen, again, understanding the limitations of predicting the future according to Spiritism, because the future depends on our free will, on the present. But these are also attributes of the spirit itself and not an intermediary between the physical and the spiritual world. So how to distinguish what is of mediumistic or anemic origin in a mediumship practice? Again, the word mediumistic here instead of mediumship, it's used because all mediumistic communications is a combination of a medium, the spirit, and some of the medium himself or herself. It's never 100% the communication of the spirit, because the medium always play a part in it. It can be a very small part of it when the medium is unconscious, or the medium is a good channel, or it can be a bit more influenced, and we'll see a little bit later why is that. It's important to also to differentiate another word here when we talk about anemism and mediumship, which is mystification. So Kardec tells us that to distinguish what is of mediumistic or anemic origin, he recommends, again, he never used the word anemic, but that's the recommendations we find in the medium's book. By the nature of the communication, study the circumstances and language, and you'll be able to tell. The medium's spirit manifests especially in the somnambulistic or ecstatic state, because that is when it's free. But in the normal state, it's more difficult. And we are going to go deeper a little bit in the somnambulic state, in the ecstatic state, to understand better those states of mediumship. And moreover, there are responses that could not possibly be attributed to the medium's own spirit. That is why I have told you to observe and study. That's Kardec in the Medium's book, chapter 19 of part 2. But I mentioned mystification. Why is it important to bring mystification? Because mystification is mediumship in a sense that we can bring false information from the spiritual world. And it can be the medium trying to deceive us, pretending that is receiving a message from the spirit and giving their own ideas and trying to disseminate their own ideas. If you remember the movie Ghost, right? Whoopi Goldberg in the beginning, before she becomes a medium, what is she doing there? That's mystification. That's a clear example of mystification. She's pretending to be a medium and giving words and counsels to people that go there, being her own ideas. So that's mystification of not being a medium. There is the mystification of being a medium, which is a deceiving spirit comes and communicates, and the medium that is not well prepared, or the group that is not well studied, accepts the message when the spirit is either trying to deceive us, or it's the pseudo-wise spirits, the spirits that pretend to know or think they know more than they do, right? Again, the spirits on the other side are just us on the other side. So the same way that we have incarnates here that tells us with all true belief in what they're talking, and talks a lot of nonsense, especially nowadays of this social media times and the conflicts we have and the differences that we have in opinions, there is a lot of people saying more, pretending to know more than they do. And spirits, these people go to the other side, they become errant spirits, and they will come and tell us what they believe is true, and it's a mystification because it's not true. And then it's important for us to remember what Kardec told us, that it's better to reject 10 truths before accepting one lie. And this is a phrase that it took me a while to understand. When I started in Spiritism, I kept thinking, why would we reject truths? And as I understood better, I learned that a lie is very dangerous, can cause a lot of harm. And rejecting truth, we are only postponing the understanding of the truth, because the truth will come back. It will always be there. It's the truth. So if we are not prepared to accept it, it doesn't matter. We just have to wait, and it will come back. And when we mature more, we will be able to accept.
John, I have a question,
yes,
if I may.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So I'm not quite clear at the definition. When I read the definition you posted here by Alan Kardec about the difference between anemic and mediumistic communication. Because when I'm thinking, okay, you said anemic could be intuition or is intuition, correct?
Anemic could be intuition, yes. Inspiration is mediumship.
All right. Now I could get an intuition from a high-level spirit and communicate it to you. And I could get, I could be the medium speaking, let's say, the message of a high-level spirit. So where's the difference here? Because...
Okay, so first, it's a very good point. Let's try to understand the difference between intuition and inspiration. That's also important here. Intuition comes from you. It's your own either experiences from the past, your own self. Inspiration is something that is suggested by the spirits, and you use it to add it to what you already have to produce something. So let's say a book, you're writing a book, you're doing your own work, but you are receiving inspiration from the spiritual guides that will direct you to write something or to improve on what you are writing. Now, intuition is you only. There is no spiritual participation on that. It's your own baggage from this life or previous existences that you carry with you. Yes, Tanya, inspirations come from another source. Perfect. But again, inspiration is you and your work that you are being helped and assisted by the spirits. It's different from mediumship, which is you transmitting the words from a spirit, okay? So what Kardec is telling us here is that sometimes a medium is talking about things that go beyond their understanding, beyond their scope of capabilities. And that is when we can see that it comes from a spirit. Yes, Charles.
Yeah, I think there's one aspect to add to what you were describing as inspiration. Let's say, Sunshine, you received the inspiration of a higher spirit. However, the interpretation that you give to it, that how you transmit it, can be anemic, can be your own contribution to that message. So that's why in mediumship, we need to be really careful with what we are transmitting, because if we unconsciously input what is ours, that's an anemic manifestation.
Yes.
You see the difference?
Yes, and a communication is never 100% from the spirit. There is always an anemic component on it.
Correct.
But we need to understand a good medium like Francisco Xavier, right? It's almost 100% from the spirit, but not even him. The best example of a medium that we have is 100% from the spirit. But talking about what what this last phrase here, Chico Xavier is a great example, right? When we read the book Evolution into Worlds of the Mechanics of Mediumship, how can Chico didn't have the ability to write those books by himself? So it's clear that it comes from a higher spirit, from a higher order spirit. So the nature of the communications is what Kardec tells us here. It's important for us to distinguish if it comes from the medium or if it comes from the spirit. Again, giving some latitude for the mixture of the communications coming from both. And again, going back to inspiration is our work, right? So the way Chico used to say that the work was from the spirits, not from him. When you're writing a book and you are inspired by the spirits, it's still your own work, and you have all the rights for it, because inspiration is not mediumship. It's guidance from the spirits, but you do your part.
Just a little parenthesis. When Emmanuel instructed Chico in the beginning of the work to have three things: discipline, discipline, discipline. One of the disciplines was exactly that. He's supposed to study everything that he received so he could have a better understanding of it, so he can be in better synchronicity with the higher mentors or spirits. So the message, when coming through him, would have that clarity.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. And we are going to see an example later on what you just said here. So moving on to somnambulism, that can be considered as a variety of mediumistic faculty, or rather, we should say that these two types of phenomena are frequently found together. Somnambulists act under the influence of their own spirit. It is their own soul who, in moments of emancipation, sees, hears, and perceives beyond the limits of the senses. What they express proceeds from themselves. Their ideas are generally more correct than during their normal state, and their knowledge is broader since the soul is free. Okay, so let's talk about somnambulism. What is somnambulism? The medium enter into a state of in a trance state, and the medium is half asleep and detaches from their physical body, leaves the physical body behind, of course, always connected by the silver cord, and go and experiences the spiritual world in different forms. You go to places, you interact with other spirits, and you bring that information to a group, let's say. So this is anemic, because it's the medium in a trance, bringing their own experiences that they saw or act or experience in the spiritual world. So again, sleepwalking, which is how somnambulism is also known, it can be another form of somnambulism, when the spirit detaches from the physical body, but it uses its own physical body to walk, to interact with others, but it is in a state of a trance. You talked about Alberto Almeida. Alberto Almeida told in a lecture a very interesting story about this somnambulism / sleepwalking. There was this man in Brazil that had a family, and he went to talk to Dr. Alberto Almeida, saying that he had a 13-year-old daughter, and he was having an affair, and he was in the point of leaving his family and living with this mistress that he had. And his daughter, that was somnambulic, sleepwalking, one night she woke up, or she entered into a somnambulic state, and started talking to him, that to the father, that she knew that he was having an affair, that he had to think better, that he had to analyze the situation of the family. And he described to Dr. Alberto Almeida that she was speaking to him like an adult. He was not a 13-year-old speaking. But he was very impressed, and he went to Dr. Alberto Almeida to ask what to do. And Dr. Alberto Almeida said, well, she in a somnambulic state, it was her, but her bringing her previous experiences as an eternal spirit and the knowledge and understanding of the needs of the family. That's what she brought to you, and that's what she discussed with you. So in the end, he didn't, at least at that point, he decided not to get divorced, to end the affair, and to focus on the family. So this is an example of somnambulistic / sleepwalking that it was very interesting. But again, somnambulism, you don't need to sleepwalk. You can be in a state of trance and go to the spiritual world and experience there. Yes, Tanya?
Yeah, Edgar Cayce was a somnambulic speaker.
Oh, yes. Yes.
He really used his mediumship on that way. Now he slept, and looking for the source on the situation of the person, and he talked, but like partial outside the body, and talking to those who was recording him and advising them. I think it's kind of that, isn't it?
Yes, the sleeping prophet, Edgar Cayce. Yeah, he was in a somnambulic state. He used to give prescriptions. He used to give foretell the future and a lot of things. He's considered probably the most famous medium that existed here in this country, right? Yeah. And it's very interesting because when he was awake, he didn't believe in what he did when he was in a somnambulic state. He always doubted himself. He never fully accepted his actions as in a somnambulic state. Yes, very, very. I was going to mention and I completely forgot. It was good that you brought. You see how we are connected, all connected.
Thank you.
Thanks. So, mediums, again, we talked about somnambulists, right? So mediums, on the other hand, serve as instruments for an outside intelligence. They're passive, and what they express is not their own. However, the spirit who communicates through an ordinary medium might also do through a somnambulist. What is that? So if a somnambulic goes to the spiritual world, have a conversation with the spirit, and the spirit says, I want to give a communication, the medium somnambulic can give the communication from the spirit. So you can be in a somnambulic state and act as a medium also. One thing does not prevent the other. On the contrary, they both work together in most of the cases very well. So many somnambulists see spirits perfectly well and describe them with the same precision as seeing mediums. They can converse with them and transmit their thoughts to us. Again, here is a medium, a somnambulic medium, describing what the spirit wants to tell us. So one thing is the spirit talking through the medium and giving us through, let's say, a psychophonic communication. And the other thing is the medium telling what he or she discussed with the spirit and bring their own version of the discussion they had with the spirit. That's an anemic experience and not a mediumship experience. I hope you understand the difference. It's subtle, but it's important to understand. So what they say beyond the circle of their personal knowledge is almost always suggested to them by other spirits. Meaning they're bringing things, let's say when Chico was writing the mechanics of mediumship, of course, this was beyond his personal knowledge at this time. And that famous program, Pinga Fogo, he's asked about those two books, Evolution in Two Worlds and the Mechanics of Mediumship. And Chico says, yes, they're very complex works, and he didn't go any further than that. It was very interesting. So where can we find some examples of somnambulism in a mediumistic meeting in the books of André Luiz? The books of André Luiz always gives us so much information, so many learning. So in the domain of mediumship, that is also published with another title in the realm of mediumship, I particularly prefer in the domain of mediumship. In chapter 3, it describes the mediumistic team. So who is the mediumistic team? You have Raul Silva, the director, and then you have some mediums there. You have Eugenia, who's a conscious medium, and it's an excellent instrument, a very good medium. But she's more, as André Luiz describes, more of a nurse. I think it's very interesting that this description. So she takes care of the spirits that are communicating through her as a nurse taking care of a patient. And then you have Selina, who is an older medium, who's clairvoyance, clairaudience, and she's an unconscious medium. And she also is a somnambulic medium, unconscious medium. The best example that I learned some time ago that I think it's important to distinguish between conscious medium, semi-conscious medium, and unconscious medium is when you have a problem in your computer, right? And you call someone to try to fix the problem. They can fix the problem in 3 ways. They can tell you what you do, you go there and do it yourself. This is a conscious medium. They can dictate, and as they dictate, you go and do what they are telling you to do, as they tell you. That's the semi-conscious medium. Or they take over your computer and they do the work and you are just observing there. That's the unconscious medium. You can always interrupt their work. You can always stop them from doing things in your computer. That's the role of the medium, the unconscious medium, but they have full control of your computer and they're doing whatever is needed. So I thought that was a great description of the differences between the conscious medium, the semi-conscious medium, and the unconscious medium. So Selina is an unconscious medium, and she acts with the spirit more like a mother. You see the difference? What's the difference between a mother and a nurse? I don't need to tell you the difference. You all know the difference between a mother and a nurse. So that's how they treat the spirits that are communicating through them. Selina acts as a mother, and there is a famous case of this blind farmer, José Maria, and André Luiz asks Aulus, why did he go to the most experienced and the best medium? And Aulus explained that she has the ability to embrace him and to treat him like a mother. And with that, she has full control of his manifestation. All his hatred, his anger, she can express through her mediumship, but he cannot go beyond what she allows him to do. So what the description that I found very interesting, that he resembled a fish in furious reaction, but within the narrow confines of a vessel, which he tried in vain to tear apart. So she creates an environment around the spirit communicating, preventing him from causing harm with her energy of a mother. Then you have another medium called Anélio, who had clairvoyance, clairaudience, and psychography. And you have Antonio Castro, who had a sonambulic that needs to be watched, a child. And that's what we see on chapter 11, when Antonio Castro goes into a sonambulic state to meet Oliveira, which is a recently discarnated member of the group. And Antonio Castro, he behaves like a child. Whenever he enters into a somnambulic state, he gets very afraid, very lost, and trying to go back to this physical body. He doesn't have the experience to know how to act in a somnambulic state. So he needs protection, he needs guidance, and he was, during this transportation that he was going through, he needed true spirits by his side, he needed the help of all the group, and finally he was able to meet Oliveira, and Oliveira transmits the message through him, sends the greet to the group, asks the group for forgiveness because he wasn't ready to go directly to the group because he was recently discarnated and still wasn't able to fully communicate. So that's the chapter 11, out-of-body experience. The unconscious transcommunication on chapter 8 is the one that I mentioned before about José Maria, the blind, hate-filled farmer that used to blind his slaves that tried to escape, and that's why he became blind in the spiritual world as a consequence of his actions, and was still struggling to understand that he was in the spiritual world. He was asking for privilege that he didn't have. In the book Mechanics of Mediumship, on chapter 21, we have what is called in the title soul disengagement. I like more the out-of-body experience, because soul disengagement, it's not wrong, but it can give you an impression that the spirit disengages from the physical body, and we know that we never fully disengage. So André Luiz, in this chapter, the out-of-body experience, he talks about the induced sleep, which is hypnotism. It's one form of somnambulic state, right? Of going to the spiritual world, and you enter into a hypnotic state, and you follow the instructions on whoever is hypnotizing you. This is a form of somnambulism. Then you have the natural sleep, which is out-of-body experience, right? We go to the spiritual world. It's natural. We all do it every time through our sleep and dream. And you have other forms. He talks about concentration and out-of-body experience, inspiration that we discussed a little bit in out-of-body experience, and mediumship and out-of-body experience. All of those that we covered. It's very important and interesting to read these chapters in this book, Mechanics of Mediumship, to learn more. And then on chapter 23, he talks about anemism, and he describes anemism as related to obsession, to mediumship, to hypnosis, to disobsession, and even to crimes. Also, very important for us to learn about anemism and all these other aspects. André Luiz teaches us very well. And finally, in the book, Missionaries of the Light, the translation is missing here, I'm sorry. Missionaries of the Light, you have in chapter 16, which is called Incorporation. When you have this very interesting case, right, which is Otavia, a very experienced medium, the struggles that she faces to go to the meeting, and then Dionisio was the spirit in the spiritual world that the family was expecting him to give the communication, to talk to them. And the family was expecting earthly solutions. They were expecting him to give guidance, his children to give guidance to what they should do with their earthly problems. And in the end, he gave the communication through Otavia, and the family all accused Otavia of being an anemic communication, saying that she knew him very well, so she was just giving words that she expects him to say. They were expecting the words of Dionysius the man, not Dionysius the spirit. Only the wife understood it to be him. And Alexander tells André Luiz that almost all incarnates who take advantage of our cooperation feel they have the right to doubt. Only rarely do we see a fellow incarnate come forward feeling the duty to help. So what was happening here, the family was waiting for solutions and for guidance for their problems, and Dionysius, already as a discarnated spirit with a spiritual vision of us as eternal spirits, was giving guidance for the family on their spiritual journey, and that's not what they wanted. The wife understood. The kids that have had very small knowledge of us as eternal spirits couldn't follow his teaching. So, some reminders for us. The medium does not act as a machine in the reception and transmission of the communicating spirit message. It's very important for us to remember that the medium is a spirit, individual spirit, that is participating in the message as a vessel. And it can be an almost clean vessel or a dirty vessel. So it can transmit the message clean or with some dirt or with a lot of dirt. But it's not a machine. The medium works like an interpreter of the communicating spirit thought, adapting them to its own ideas and tendencies. But it does not exert any influence on the communicating spirits themselves. It may be merely a bad interpreter. So a medium receives the communication from the spirits through thought. It's not that the spirit is dictating the word. The spirit is passing their thoughts to the medium that use their own thought, their own knowledge to say the message or write the message. A very good example that I heard is there was this spirit that was a doctor that was trying to give a message talking about some special characteristics of the heart, but the medium was never a doctor, had no knowledge of in previous existence or this existence of the terminology related to the heart. So when the spirit said the cardiac member, the medium just said heart. So that's how the medium is limited by their own knowledge and their own ability to communicate with their own words. And it's very important. That's why Kardec and Emmanuel especially asks us to study. Because for us to be a better instrument of the spirits, the more knowledge we have, the more we are going to be able to transmit the messages from the spirits. So if we have limited ability to on our knowledge as eternal spirit, again, as eternal spirit, because we can access our previous incarnations to access this knowledge and bring it through, again, the intuition part, right? But it's very important that the medium educate oneself so it can be a better instrument for the communication of the spirit. The bad interpreter here is our lack of ability to transmit the full message from the spirits. Many times in our mediumship meetings here, the mediums that bring messages from the mentors, after the meeting, they say, oh, the message was much more beautiful than I could transmit. I didn't have the words to describe the beauty of the message. And what I saw and what I could transmit are not the same thing. It's like that, right? Because it's through thought. So the medium is receiving those beautiful images, those beautiful inspirations, and they cannot fully transmit because of the limitations of either the medium or also of our language, right? Because sometimes we don't have words to describe what is coming to us. So on the medium's book again, Kardec tells us that the medium's spirit is the interpreter because it is connected to the body which serves for the communication. And because this link between you and the communicating spirits is necessary, just as an electric wire is necessary for transmitting news over distance. And an intelligent person is necessary on either end of the wire to receive and communicate. Remember, at the time of Kardec, they were just starting to communicate long distances through the wire, right? And Kardec was saying, right, for the Morse code, for instance, which was used a lot at that time, you have to have an intelligent person to interpret the Morse code message, right? So if someone is transmitting the Morse code and nobody on the other side understands the Morse code, then the message gets lost, it's not transmitted. So that's what Kardec is telling us here, that the medium is the interpreter. It has to be able to interpret the communication, is receiving. It has to be a person that knows how to talk or how to write and how to receive the message. But one thing that also we learn in the domain of mediumship on chapter 22 is that the medium interference in a spirit communication may be beneficial and even necessary. Because when you have this very disturbed spirit, that they want to come out screaming and shouting and cursing and everything, the medium has to interfere to control the communication. You can express the anger, you can express all the sentiments that the spirit has, but in words and in a behavior that is conducive to the meeting we are having. You are not going to start breaking chairs and hitting other people. That's the medium's responsibility to control the manifestation of the spirit. So the interference of the medium is necessary, like when we said about that earlier on that José Maria and Celina controlling the communication, not allowing him to fully express, because with his anger he could hurt others in the group, and also in the manifestation of spiritual persecutors, meaning the medium has to be able to control the anger and the hatred of this persecutor. Sometimes the persecutor against the own medium, the medium has to be able to control. Yes, Tanya.
An example of this in the United States today is the shooters, the people who have been used by a group, I believe it's a group of spirits, and they're not aware of their mediumship, what they are being used for, and with their ideas and hatredness, they accumulate on themselves to the immoral. And they, unfortunately, so many in this country today that have been using to kill so many innocent people, quotation marks.
Yeah, and there are two things that is important. These people that commit these acts, they are surrounded by evil spirits that are trying to influence them. But on the other side, they have their free will. You cannot blame the spirits for your own acts. You can always say, and it's always true, that there is spiritual influence in these acts, and very inferior spirits and evil spirits that surround these people, but they use their free will. They can, like a medium can control what the spirit is going to communicate through them. They can decide with their free will not to hear, not to follow what these evil spirits are telling them to do.
Yeah, the importance and the need of the study and education and moral transformation.
Yes. And André Luis continues here. It's important for the medium to interfere firmly and fraternally so that the meeting is not disrupted and order and harmony are preserved. That's the importance of the medium's interference in the communication that may be necessary, and in these cases. So, because we talked a lot about the medium being a clear vessel, but clear vessel within limits of the group, the necessity of the group, and the respect for the communication to be useful, right? Which is the most important thing. For you to help someone, you need to find some point that you can calm the spirit and you can have a conversation, because if the spirit starts screaming and shouting and cursing at everyone, there is no dialogue. And the objective of the medium mystic meeting is the dialogue with the spirit. If there is no dialogue, there is no there's nothing useful for the meeting. And that's a very interesting case on chapter 22, that there are cases of anemic manifestation that can be associated with obsession or mental disharmony that was called by André Luis as an immersion in the path. In this chapter, there is this lady that starts to communicate in a so-called mediumship trance, and André Luis asks Aulus, what's going on there? I see a sad spirit by her side, but the spirit's not communicating. I don't see any other spirit. What is she talking about? And Aulus said, it's not the obsessor that is communicating. That's the obsessor you're seeing. But she is returning to her past, and she is reliving the experience that caused this obsession to happen. And this is her talking outside of her present existence, the past that was so harmful to her that she cannot get rid of it, that still is present in her incarnation, and she's communicating. So this is an anemic communication. It's not mystification, it's her communicating, and the obsessor, every time that the obsessor comes close to her, she enters into this disturbed state. So again, anemism, but how do you treat that? You treat that helping her and helping the obsessor. It's not a mediumship communication, it's an anemic communication, but no less important and no less useful for the group to learn from and to help and assist. Again, how in a mediumship meeting we incarnates would know that this is the spirit, the spirit communicating? Well, a medium can, we can tell that the medium is the communications are anemic if the communications become very similar. You know, we had a case in our group of a medium that was always going back to the time of Napoleon. He was a soldier suffering in the war, and he was the persecutions, everything related to Napoleon. So after the third or fourth communication that was the same, you know, we became aware that it was an anemic manifestation from the medium going to his path when he lived and discarnated at the time of the Napoleon Wars, right? Because if the medium keeps going back to the same story of time and time and time, it's very suspicious, and it's clear a case of anemic communication. Do you discard the medium? No. Do you just dismiss the communications? No. You talk to the medium, you talk to the spirit, you are talking to the medium, not to an external spirit, and you can help the medium deal with their past and this anemic communication. So again, the mediumistic practice demands from the group caution, knowledge, and fraternity in order to help the mediums without persecuting them for fear of anemism. that by ignorance and misinformation can be seen as mystification, conscious or unconscious. Remember, mystification can be conscious when the spirit or the medium know what they're doing, or unconscious when the medium is transmitting a message from a spirit that is trying to deceive us, but the medium is not aware. So again, fraternity and learning, right? The two wings of evolution, the moral and the intellectual, like was told us in the beginning of this meeting that Emmanuel told us, right? That's what's important in the mediumship meeting. It is necessary to be very tactful and to have a good understanding in the conducting of this matter by verifying that the anemic interferences of the medium do not exceed the acceptable limit. So in the case that I mentioned before, okay, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 communications. It reaches a point that you have to talk to the medium. Listen, the communications are always the same. You need to allow spirits to communicate, not your own only communication. Even if the medium has to stop working as a medium for some time, to go back to studies, to go back to prepare themselves better. So that's the acceptable limit, right? But you are not going to kick the medium out of the meeting or forbid the medium to give communications, because that's not charitable, that's not fraternity. Until the faculty is educated, the medium should be treated with the same attention we give to suffering communicators. We treat the medium the same way we treat suffering spirit. So that was what I wanted to bring you today. I don't know how long we had for it. I may have gone over a little bit the time, but thank you for the opportunity of being here. And if you have any more questions, I'm happy to discuss them. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, thanks so much, John. That was a wonderful reminding and reviewing and educating to some would be new for them. And most of us, most of here studying, educating, and participating in the Medium Mystical group of BS8 Center. I'm sure it's a lot of reminding for us who have been studying for 10 years together. And but it is amazing reminding all the education for medium, because mediumship is a part of the evolution of the human beings. No, it is a part, because as Kardec said, all of us was born as medium. No, we all develop mediumship. We will all develop mediumship. Even in the animals, we see even the in the vegetable kingdom, we will see plants with sensitivities. No, so because we will say the mediumship is more organic evolution. No. So thanks so much for your reminding and the teachings, and very well putting together. Appreciate your time with us, and I'm sure anybody has questions, they will be asking or making their thoughts too. Thanks so much, John.
Thanks.
You know, I do appreciate the recap. It was really good, you know, but there, to me, that I think it's in the I never could say that word, somnambulism.
Somnambulism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In that space, I think, you know how sometimes you get these messages, and then, but there's also that dream space. To me, there's like a fine line in there, because sometimes it's from your astral, you know, your travels, and you get these messages, but it's never, that word dream is never really incorporated in the mediumship. So my question is, can you explain a little bit of the difference between the dreaming and the communication?
Yes. So somnambulism is a trance state, right? You
Right.
enter into a state of trance, and then you go to the spiritual world. Dream is when you are sleeping. It's a natural state, and you go to the spiritual world. The difference is natural state and trance state, right? The experiences that you have in the spiritual world in both, you can say that they can be similar, that can be the same. You can describe and tell them as your own experiences. The thing is, when you are in a somnambulic state, normally there is a reason behind it, right? You are in a somnambulic state, you go to the spiritual world for a reason. Like I described the case of that medium that went there to meet Oliveira. When you are in a sleep state, that's your normal state that we have to go every day to sleep, and we dream, you go to the spiritual world. Some of us go further. Most of us, what André Luiz tells us in the mechanics of mediumship is most of us stay very close to our material needs and our material lives because we are unable to go further because of our inferior state. Still, our evolutionary path, we are very inferior spirits. But some of us can go, and we read this in the books of André Luiz, that you have these lectures in the spiritual world, that you have people that go in their sleep. So both are learning experiences, both are states that we become more free from the restrictions of our physical body. Mm-hmm. But the somnambulic state is more, it happens for a reason. It happens in a trance state, and it happens in mediumistic meetings or in environments that are more appropriate for this type of manifestation. And the dream state is a normal state. I don't know if it was clear.
Yeah, it's clear. We don't sleep during the meetings. We're not supposed to, put it that way.
Exactly.
Well, John, taking advantage of this, the catatonic stage and somnambulic stage, it is the same or is different? Because
it's different, right? Because a catatonic state is physical condition, right? Mm-hmm. You enter into a catatonic state because there is something physical issues, and the somnambulic state is a state of trance. It's not a physical occurrence with your physical body, right? You are simply disconnecting or detaching from your physical body. You, the spirit, still connected through the silver cord. So it's a gray area between the two. But the catatonic state is something that happens to your physical body. You enter into a catatonic state. The mediumship, it's just a state of trance, which is, I could say, mental, or like a mediumship. When you are in a medium, when you are acting as a medium, your physical body is feeling what the spirit is feeling, things like that. But there is nothing wrong or happening with your physical body per se, different from a catatonic state where something is happening with your physical body.
Because maybe I have a revelation for myself here, an answer, because I thought I was catatonic, and maybe I'm a somnambulic, because in my stage of catatonic that I thought my whole life is like I'm a partial in the body and partial outside the body, that I can see, communicate with the spirits. And for me, that was my catatonic stage.
It sounds to me as somnambulic.
And since a child, I have that. It's half in the body, half outside the body, like I'm going there. And then I start to get scared and it's freezing, but I can see and listen and communicate with all the spirits. So maybe make a revelation to me today.
Yeah, it sounds to me like a somnambulic state. Yes. But again, you have to talk to some physician about the catatonic state. What are the physical traits of the catatonic state? And maybe you have them, maybe you don't. I don't know. But I'll research more on that and I'll let you know.
Because I am always conscient. I think the
you are conscious.
Always conscious.
You are not. Yeah, catatonic, you are not conscious.
And is interesting. Thanks so much. I will study more too.
Okay. Anyone else?
I do. Ron, I really appreciate this very opportune and a timely presentation on the aspect of animism. I think it is really important, fundamental for those of us that wants to develop these mediumship abilities that we all have, some more, some less. But it's a very important aspect that we need to be conscious of, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you. Thanks, Todd.
And for Regina, somnambulism is a big word, I know, but for us over here, we call it sleepwalking.
Yeah, it's just that sleepwalking. We describe as someone that is during the sleep stands up and starts walking around, right? And sonambulism in spiritism as a trance, you don't sleepwalk. You are just in a trance state. You may be in your chair, looks like you are sleeping, but you are experiencing the spiritual world, like Tanya can talk about with her own experience.
Yeah, the word that is in the middle, ambulic, that means mobility, right? So sonambulic is exactly that. You kind of sleeping, mobile, walking. That's what it is. So it's language.
Your spirit is moving around.
Right.
You are moving around in spirit. Maybe, I don't know.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Joao, and our friends for your contribution, bringing light to this beautiful discussion. What a beautiful class. What a wonderful reminders to all of us. Very timely, very much needed. So thank you, Joao, one more time for your presence, bringing the light to our lives. Friends, if you don't have any more questions for John or Joao, we are going to take a short break. It is right now 11:17 PST. We shall come back in 3 minutes because we have the second part of our healing. And we're going to stay here during the break. So if you would like to exchange more information with John here via the chat box, please feel free to do so. Don't forget your water for the second portion. One more time, John, on behalf of Bezerra Spiritual Healing Centers and our friends online, thank you. Muito obrigada for your knowledge, for your expertise, and for being such a beautiful soul spreading the light wherever you go. Thank you.
And we love to have you, and we wish you can come back more times, please. Okay.
All right.
Thanks so much.
I'm available. Just tell me. I'll be here. Thank you.